Well. Wednesday, September 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel, and it's time to go on the hot seat. But first, FootballDiehards.com is the website. We appreciate you joining us here on the YouTube channel every Wednesday at this time. Also, Saturdays at noon for the Ask Me Anything live streams. Very enjoyable seeing you there as well. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. They're down there. Do those things. And then hit the like button. I'm going to hit the dislike button so everyone can feel free. Don't have to be the first one in. If you don't like me, I don't care. Well, I care, but it's okay. No lack of stuff this week. Lots of stuff. An endless array of stuff happening, and some of it kind of major developments this very afternoon. So we got a lot to get through. So let's not pussyfoot around, Mr. Scampers. And hello out in the chat. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Hi, Rob. We see your question. We'll probably get to that right away. But first, I'm going to bring on my guest. You know him from the Football Diehards program on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. He's the host of Jaguars Today on 1010XL in Jacksonville, game day co-host, Jaguars Radio Network. He does all kinds of stuff. His name's Mike Dempsey. He's fantastic. I know him well. Here he is. Hi, Mike.
Here I am. Hello.
How are you today?
I'm all right. What's up? Well, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for making some time. So how are your Cam Akers shares looking all of a sudden? In case anyone's just showing up here, the news is in. Cam Akers has been traded. We had a couple developments today. Cam Akers traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips both come from the Rams, the head coach and coordinator in Minnesota. So they are familiar with whatever it is he brings to the table on the field. We kind of have a good idea. I'm still curious to know what it is off the field that causes him so many issues. And then Kareem Hunt returns to Cleveland. Not a huge surprise with Nick Chubb out for the season. Hello, Dame. Hello, Albert. Hello, John Bonneville. Thanks for coming along. I was going to watch a Kelsey documentary, but he's here for this because he's not missing the Dempsey episode. And I don't blame him.
Oh, wow.
I'm not missing this one either.
I would. Are you kidding?
Not much pressure. Not much pressure on Mike. So what do we do? Let's start out with the trade. It just happened. We're not surprised that there was a trade. Should we be surprised at the destination given the connections and, Alexander Madison's rather slow start?
Well, I mean, the connection is the only thing that gives Cam Akers any hope. You know, you were thinking, why would anybody bring a guy who seems to be a malcontent into the locker room if they don't know the guy? Like, I didn't get the whole, hey, let's bring him to Cleveland and add him to the mix kind of thing. So at least Kevin O'Connell knows what he's dealing with, Bob. But the conditions of the trade don't exactly scream large role ahead necessarily for Cam Akers. It's a swap of 2026 draft picks. That's about as far out as you can trade picks. And, it's been speculated that it's probably like the Vikings giving up a sixth and getting a seventh back in the deal, something along those lines. And Cam Akers, so his value is about as low as you can make it. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. And he goes to a situation, I mean, you and I were talking before the show, everyone's using the Spider-Man meme of them pointing at each other and, hey, look, Alexander Madison. No, look, it's Cam Akers. No, look, it's the same exact guy. And, both of them have gotten some volume. Neither one of them has done anything with it in the first few weeks of the season. I understand Cam Akers was inactive this week, but 20 carries in week one. I mean, I suppose, again, if you're a Cam Akers investor, good. If you're a Madison investor, it was already bad, but this makes it worse. There's another option in that backfield. I don't think Cam Akers will be active this week is my guess, but, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know about that, but I'm going to say he's probably not. So Alexander Madison maybe has that one last chance to show that he deserves to be the clear lead ball carrier in this backfield, and then it'll be an open competition, but it's likely going to neutralize the value of both of these guys, I would think.
Right. I had concerns. We talked about it over the course of the summer. My concerns about, Alexander Madison seems pretty polarizing. People were either all in on him or pretty skeptical. I was towards the skeptical end. Look, he's one of my Scott Fishbowl running backs, so I'm not happy about this. But my expectations were not super high because of how much this offense passed last year. It was nearly 65% of the time. Might be more now. I don't know. I got to look at the numbers. But, I mean, this is going to be a pass-heavy attack. So, it's both of them might cancel out whatever minimal value the other one could have had. And also the offensive line play, they're just not getting much done, not getting much push. So we might regret this move, but I don't know if it's like a game changing, a league changer. I was really excited about the way Cam Akers played down the stretch last year with a lousy offensive line. But man, this is not an ideal situation for any of us. Kareem Hunt, look, Jerome Ford looked pretty good, right, Mike? Coming in like
I thought so.
Horrible news. I'm sure you all heard. In case you didn't, by the way, hi Royal, hi Joe, hi Golf Boy. Golf Boy's here, Mike. You guys probably have something to talk about.
Hey,
hi,
Golf Boy, let's go play.
He's ready to swing him. He's got a bucket of balls sitting next to him.
I already hit my bucket today.
All right, fair enough. It is late in the day. So we look at Jerome Ford, and I mean, and Kareem Hunt, or Nick Chubb, horrible injury. Hate to see the season end like that for anybody, but there we have it. He's blown that knee out completely before. Hopefully, he can return from this as well, like he did successfully from the last one. But horrible injury. Jerome Ford looked pretty darn good, especially on that 68-yard run. But he also averaged 2.5 yards a carry on his other carries. Kareem Hunt knows the offense. I feel like, Mike, the Browns already told us what their choice is here when they moved on from Kareem Hunt in favor of Jerome Ford. But is this enough to put a fly in the ointment that maybe has you dialing off your expectations for Ford?
Well, I think, again, Ford probably gets the crack at it this week, and we'll see if he can impress enough to kind of really consolidate that job for himself. But I know what you're talking about, Bob. The reporting was, after a year in which Kareem Hunt averaged 3.8 yards a carry, the Browns just felt like he had lost some speed and wasn't the same explosive player. Now, it's easy for us to say they chose Jerome Ford over Kareem Hunt, and they did in a sense, but when you look at the deal that Kareem Hunt signed, 1 year, $4 million, Jerome Ford's a lot more inexpensive as well. And so Kareem Hunt went into this offseason with designs on getting a fat contract for himself. So I'm sure that was part of the equation that, okay, we're not going to pay him that to be a backup to Nick Chubb. We'll roll with Jerome Ford. So I think it's an open question once Hunt gets in there. He did work out for the team yesterday, so he showed them enough for them to sign him. And I think his knowledge of the situation makes him an easy fit. And probably at this point, Kareem Hunt is like, hey, I better get whatever money I can get because nobody's beating down my door to sign me. You and I had talked about it a lot. It looked like he was going to the Saints, and then the Colts kind of intervened, and it looked like he would go there, and maybe he'd get the chance to open the season as a starter in place of Jonathan Taylor, but none of that ever materialized. So left you wondering, was he asking for too much money, or did he just not look like the same player in the workouts with these teams? But I do think it's possible that money played a role here, and now that he's under contract, and now that they're kind of in a more desperate position, having dropped a very winnable game to Pittsburgh, that Hunt actually ends up as the guy to have in this backfield. But that's kind of the problem with this week's waiver wire, right? If Jerome Ford was out there, did you blow your budget on acquiring him? Maybe you made the right call. Maybe somebody swooped in and got Kareem Hunt for pennies. I don't think we're going to know for a few weeks how this one's going to play out.
I think that's true. John Bonneville in the chat saying he doesn't see Akers eating too much into Madison's immediate workload. We agree with that. It's more of an indictment maybe on Ty Chandler and the offensive line. He notes that Vikings signed Dalton Reisner. So, they know their offensive line needed help, and they're trying to do some things to help that as well. Joe Burrow, Mike, the Monday night game, going to be an issue here. It sounds like he's feeling a little better, but I don't know that helps us any if we're having to decide. Like, I'm playing Brock Purdy in one league over him because that's my choice, Thursday night or Monday night. But bigger picture for Joe Burrow, calf injuries tend to linger a little bit. How big of an issue, how much of a concern is this for you, for players around him as well as for Joe Burrow returning value?
Well, it's obviously a concern. I mean, it worked out for T. Higgins this week, but that's 1 out of 2 weeks that it worked out. It hasn't worked out for Jamar Chase yet. For this week specifically, I mean, I'm going to play Chase and I'm going to play Higgins and hope for the best, that whether it's Jake Browning or Joe Burrow, that they get force-fed enough targets that they can at least, be worthy of starting on your team. They may not be the guy in the position like you took Chase as your number one player. This year you took Higgins in the late second or early third. So their, place on your personal fantasy depth chart is pretty high. They may not produce those kind of results, but how can you play Burrow this week, Bob? Like you said, you got to play a guy that is healthy and get him in there, because anything other than Burrow's completely off the injury report, I mean, it's the last kickoff of the week. You're going to have no pivots, and I suppose you could pick up Jake Browning and go that route, or if Stafford's available, that would be fine. But you have to have a Monday night pivot for me to be comfortable to play Joe Burrow this week.
Yeah, I think Stafford is the answer for me. I mean, Browning, I don't know that he's taken a snap in anger in a regular
I hear you.
Snap. So that would be a huge concern, and obviously a huge concern for the pieces around him. I see the questions out there, people, and we will be getting to them momentarily. Wanted to just work through a couple other things, a couple other comments there. Seems like the view in John Bonneville, Hunt is familiar with the playbook. There's a reason he wasn't on the team till now, and Ford's going to get every opportunity. Seen a couple comments like that. I think that's true. I mean, Stefanski's basically said, as much, that Jerome Ford's the guy, but we'll see how much he can hold on to that. Again, I would suggest if he's averaging 2.5 yards a carry outside that 68-yard run, that's not what they're looking for from their rushing attack. So we'll see.
But we know that, rushing averages are greatly influenced by that long run, right? So you can't play the game of, we're going to take away your biggest play here. I will also add that I believe at some point – Sean McVay indicated that the offense in LA would run through Cam Akers this year as well. So, coaches say a lot of things, and good luck. Hopefully some of them will come true.
I think you and I both would like to have been a fly on the wall inside the Rams facility just to see what the hell. How did it get so bad so fast? I mean,
we gave you 20 carries.
Right?
Like, did they tell everyone don't block on his carries? And, I don't know. But obviously, look, this has been, he's been unhappy before. Right. He's asked for a trade before. So we shouldn't be that surprised by Cam Akers.
All right, a few other newsy items before we get to all your questions. Saquon Barkley ruled out. Thankfully, they give us a little clarity here. Any interest for you in Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, the rookie there? Anything that interests you in this, not named Daniel Jones in the running game for the Giants?
I mean, it depends on your level of desperation, right? I mean, a live body who might get 10 carries is better than Cam Akers this week, for instance. So, I mean, but that's what it is. I mean, Breida's a decent player, I think. But, it's San Francisco you're going up against. So you got the matchup. You've got the uncertainty of exactly what the distribution of carries is going to be. You got the fact that the Giants offense has stunk out loud for 6 of the 8 quarters they played. Now, they came on the second half, but Saquon Barkley is a big part of that as well. So, Daniel Jones is going to have another prove-it type situation. So I'm hoping I don't have to be in a position. I'll be honest, I didn't get Breida in most of the waiver claims. People were grabbing him. I ended up getting a lot of Craig Reynolds this week, some Tony Jones Jr., seeing how things work out with Kendre Miller, kind of as a 1-week situation. So I'm hoping you don't have to play Breida this week, but, desperation makes you do funny things. And I got to believe Breida's good for 10 touches, but what he does with them is totally up in the air, and I wouldn't think he's going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, there's some reporting out there that Kendre Miller will likely be the starter. So assuming Williams is going to miss some time. So we'll see how that plays out as well. A couple other items. Brandon Ayuk listed as questionable, had the shoulder injury. Hopefully he will be able to make it on the field and be functional. Austin Eckler still not practicing. Anthony Richardson not practicing, has the concussion. Anthony Jones did not practice. Christian Watson was on the field. David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, both held out. Sounds like Montgomery, Dan Campbell called everyone day-to-day. Makes me think, we know David Montgomery's not really day-to-day. Now he's calling Amon-Ra St. Brown. Is he the same day-to-day as David Montgomery, who seems like he's more week-to-week? That's a concern there. We'll have to watch that. Jalen Waddle in the concussion protocol. DK Metcalf has got some rib issues. And boy, the big news today, Chase Edmonds to IR. That's sad. That's sad. Rashad White. We have a Rashad White.
It's always tough when these guys, we all sit here and their names on paper to us or the names on the screen, but it is sad for these guys. They work so hard all off season. It's not sad for fantasy managers. So let's put it that way. I understand that.
Not.
No doubt.
Right. So I mentioned that to set up a question from Hearts for Kayonde. I can't say names. So we've got Kyron Williams, Jamal Williams, Javonte Williams, or Rashad White this week, Mike Dempsey. And I can give you, by the way, if you're throwing questions in the I think so, too. If you're throwing questions in the chat, give us the matchup. Not that we don't know them, but help facilitate the speed with which we process the information. So throw that in there in the chat. So I'm with you on Kyron as well. Clear path to workload, not a bad matchup this week.
It was awesome last week as well. He's getting tons of work. The decks are cleared. I think that's I wish I had been able to get him. It's just one of the ways it went after week 1. You put in your claims, and if you're not in position and, or you don't want to break the bank. Because at that time, Bob, we were looking at it like, Cam Akers had 20 carries in this game. Is this a 1 week aberration with the playing time with Kyron Williams? Obviously not at this stage. And I wouldn't mind. I think he could be an RB2 going forward now.
I would agree with that for sure. What are our thoughts? Thoughts on who to start as a second quarterback in a 2-quarterback league? Russell Wilson versus or at Miami, or Fields at Kansas City. If you did not see the Justin Fields thing today unfold, he came out and basically threw the coaches under the bus, then went back in the locker room and tried to unthrow them from under the bus. He said they were forcing him to process. They had him. The coaching was forcing him to be robotic. They wanted him to go through all of these motions, and he felt like he should react more. Then he had to come back an hour or so later and kind of clean up on aisle coaching blame and said, no, it's on me. And a lot going on in Chicago today between the defensive coordinator issues where the police may or may not have raided the team headquarters, depending on who you listen to. But he ended up resigning. Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator, apparently has some off-field issues, put out a statement and everything. So a lot going on. But Justin Fields, Mike, Russell Wilson at Miami or Justin Fields at KC, I'm probably still playing Fields, but there's a lot to process on this one.
Absolutely. I think if you're playing Fields, it's because of the sunk cost and you expect him to be what you saw last year, a guy that's willingly going to take off and run when the situation calls for it. And that's what we're talking about here. Fields talking about, basically he's saying, without using the exact words, that they're confining him to the pocket, making him go,
right.
Maybe last year he'd go through 1 or 2 reads. And I get that. You want a guy to go through his progressions, but at the same time, Justin Fields brings that tool that is, field flipping footwork. He can go 40, 50 yards on any given play. He's fantastic in the open field. I couldn't imagine Baltimore telling Lamar Jackson, hey, don't utilize that aspect of your game. Yeah, we want you to go through your progressions. And it's not like the Bears have a ton of receivers that you want him to go through his progressions with. But I guess, the addition of DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, I know Claypool caught a touchdown last week, but fantasy managers drafted Justin Fields for his legs primarily, and hopefully that passing game would grow with the addition of DJ Moore. This is a tough one, Bob. I probably am with you. I'd probably go Fields for another week because, I'd have a tough time pulling myself away, like feeling like I'm going to miss that breakout. But Russell Wilson had a really good game statistically last week, and you figure Miami's going to put up some points, right? And, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. He ran for 56 as well. So, that was something we hadn't seen from Russell Wilson in a while. Then again, I think Miami can play some pretty decent defense as well. So I'm probably going to push it with Justin Fields one more week. And if he gives you another, 14, 15-point effort, then I think all things are on the table.
Yeah, it's totally a concern. I mean, it's fair to wonder about the long term, if you're invested in dynasty leagues for the long term here. I mean, if they look, this coaching staff not doing a great job, people, right? And so, are they going to stick around? If they stick around, they kind of got saddled with Justin Fields. Well, the next regime coming in, would they be as interested or think they can fix him? Who knows? So could be a lot going on. Does he play baseball?
Does he? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Not that I'm aware of, but I bet he played better than you or I. Yeah, probably maybe.
So. Tyler could do some workouts. Golf Boy wants to know, is it too early to panic on Deshaun Watson? I don't panic on anybody, but I'm looking for my panic button right now on Deshaun Watson, Mike. How do you feel?
Yeah, right. Like, there's a difference between panic and going, hey, this guy's not getting it done like we thought, and we've got to readjust our expectations. You could apply that to Fields if you want to, but I think, he was a guy I was drafting right around the top 5, whereas Watson was more of a late in the top 10 kind of selection for me. I've got a decision this week. Do I play Watson or do I go with Jordan Love? And I'm honestly debating it. He did not look good. And now you have the threat of Nick Chubb taken away. So one of two things is going to happen. Either more is going to go on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson and they'll produce more for fantasy managers, or defensive coordinators are going to be able to more readily focus on that aspect of the game, is, containing him, as opposed to what are we going to do with that battering ram of a running back who averages over 5 yards a carry throughout his career. So, I don't know. I don't say panic right now, Bob, but we heard all this talk about Elijah Moore is going to be really good. Well, Watson barely threw him a ball that would keep him in bounds the other night. Amari Cooper's okay, but Donovan Peoples-Jones is kind of just a guy. David Njoku's not off to any kind of a start, and it all goes back to Watson. I think the weapons are decent enough, but I think it's a team that philosophically wants to run the ball, which kind of it really goes back to making you wonder why they panicked so much to guarantee that entire deal. And that's what it was. It was a panic move where they felt like they had to get a, quote, elite quarterback, and Watson had been that at one point. He hasn't proven to be that right now. So I'm more ready to bench Deshaun Watson than I would be Justin Fields at this point.
I am as well. And I try to remind myself, and, everyone out there knows, if you're in the chat, I'm your regular visitor here. I'm not a hit the panic button guy. I don't like what I've seen, right? That said, Deshaun Watson has job security like nobody else, right? He's not going anywhere. Kevin Stefanski's going places before Deshaun Watson goes places. Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns until that contract expires. And so he has that. And also, I try to tell myself things like, think back, like I remember not too many seasons ago when, like, for the first half of the season, Tom Brady couldn't hit a deep pass. And then he ended the season as the most effective deep passer in the NFL, right? I mean, what is now is not necessarily what it's going to be in a month, 2 months, maybe when it matters the most for us as fantasy managers. So, we got to get there. And then that brings us to a question from Jim Furry that I always think is the real conundrum of fantasy football. Currently 0-2, snake bit. Lost by a total of 3.5 points if Olave catches one more pass in each game. I'm 2-0. Question: lots of QBs dropped last night. Carr, Pickett, Watson. Any of them worth picking up? I think we just went through the Watson, Carr, or Pickett. But just going back, Mike, when you're sitting there and you've got a team that you're heading into October, you're 1-3 or 0-4. What are you looking at? Where do you find consolation? Is it as simple as looking at the points, 4 points against, seeing, measuring your level of competitiveness before you start trying crazy things, or are you more willing to move earlier if you're at that point in heading into October?
I mean, I'm willing to move, but it really depends on your evaluation. Like you said, I had an 0-4 team going back about 5 years that ended up winning the league going away. Never lost another game, but I knew I had the horses, and it was just circumstances. And part of it was waiting for Le'Veon Bell's suspension to end and come back. But I had all these guys, and as it turned out, I was steamrolling people later in the year. You got to be realistic, though. I mean, if you're 1-3, 0-4, you're on the brink of being not mathematically eliminated, but for all intents and purposes, eliminated from any kind of competition. So why wouldn't you try to mix things up? Now, I'm not dropping Deshaun Watson like we just heard about in that league right there. But, I think you have to let go of your preconceived notions and be willing to shake it up, whether that's in your lineup or on your roster, Bob. And I do think you just got to do a hard evaluation. If you've got a little bit of depth, be willing to empty it out and improve your starting lineup. That's a move we like to make later in the season usually, but you might not have the time to wait, and if your bench is godforsaken wasteland, who cares if you can cobble together a decent starting lineup? So I think every situation's different, but I think you have to, like you said, really evaluate where you are in terms of how you're scoring points versus the rest of your league makes. If it's a run of bad luck, it can change. If your roster is fundamentally flawed, you got to be able to recognize that.
By the way, Jim, just to answer your question, I like Carr of that group. Mike, Carr, Pickett, Watson, how do you view him? Is Watson still somebody you want to pick up in case, or are you just kind of more interested?
I think I'd rather, honestly, I think Carr's ceiling is Carr getting it done though. He threw for 228 with an interception this week. I mean, he didn't throw any touchdowns. I guess it's
the pieces around him. I like the pieces.
He does have good, but okay, but are they that much better when you could, like, I'll take Njoku over Juwan Johnson. I'll certainly take Olave over Amari Cooper. But Cooper's still good, and I would probably take the receiver core for Carr. But we know part of the problem is Taysom Hill, Bob, and he comes in high leverage situations. They'll put him inside the 5-yard line. Watson will have a chance to run in a few touchdowns in that circumstance, or at least throw for one, whereas Derek Carr doesn't get those same opportunities. So I would much rather have Watson. I feel like Carr, that level of impact. I might even take a chance on Kenny Pickett, because I feel like he's a little bit more of a gunslinger, and we saw George Pickens wake up a little bit this week, and Deontay Johnson's going to be back at some point after his IR stint. So I actually might go Watson, Pickett, Carr for rest of season for me at this point in time.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett may be the guy who should be throwing his coach under the bus in this one. I mean, make the play calls. It was interesting. I mean, I know there were some of the complaints were, like clearly Najee Harris is lacking a little explosiveness. If they're asking him to hit the edge, instead of running him up the middle where maybe he could have a chance. They weren't unleashing Pickens until a certain point. So we'll see. Maybe he'll listen to that. I do like the weaponry for Carr, but you're probably right, Watson. I'm probably overstating it. I was really disappointed. I have been really disappointed in what I've seen from Watson so far. I think I expected him to hit the ground running as something closer to what we saw in Houston, which was a top 5 quarterback. That's probably unrealistic on my part. And I think I started dialing back from that as we got late in the summer, Mike. I think early portion of camp, I was like all in. I think I shifted to Tua in that price range, and I feel really good about that. I think Tua looks like he has like top 5 upside, depending on how many of those, those big passing days they have versus the big Raheem Mostert days.
Yeah, I think, look, I'll be honest. I feel like I've had Tua ahead of Watson really most of the offseason. But the problem with Tua is, durability, as we know. So if you drafted Tua, and really in the offseason, you and I are drafting best ball teams by the dozen. So, your roster is locked. You can't make those in-season moves. So the key with Tua was making sure you backed him up with 1 or 2 pretty durable type quarterbacks. But regardless, I mean, it really doesn't matter that much what you paid for these guys right now. I do think Watson can still return us value. He was decent in week 1. He wasn't bad. And this was Pittsburgh at home, Monday Night Football, traditional rivalry. Place was going nuts. I think there'll be better days for Deshaun ahead. But yeah, Tua, there are a lot of quarterbacks I would trade straight up for Tua right now. No argument there.
Yeah, me too. By the way, if you just showed up, I'm Bob Harris. This is Football Diehards YouTube channel. Mike Dempsey is with me. He's my co-host on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio and NFL radio show, Football Diehards. It's a fantastic show. We do great work all the time. You can catch us every Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 10 p.m. Monday and Thursday, we go 3 hours until like 1 in the morning. Saturdays, you can catch us on NFL radio simulcast on the Fantasy Channel. That's 8 to 11 p.m. We take a lot of calls. If you don't get your questions in here or during my Saturday Ask Me Anything session, you can get your questions in with us. We'd love to hear from you. It's very enjoyable. We do our one and done draft on Fridays. We'd love to see some of you get in on that. Anyway, also Football Diehards, it's a website. Go there, .com. Use the promo code Diehards, get 15% off anything you want. And by anything, I mean the Flash Update premium service. It's fantastic. I can vouch for it because I do some of that. But we have great contributors there as well. Many of them who you see on these live streams or in these chats. Myself, John Laub, Evan Tarciano, Joe Kalana, Jamie Calandro. You find Eric Romoff. We do the Friday Night DFS show too, 9 p.m. Don't miss that as well with Jamie and doing great work. So check all that out. We got more questions, Mike. Someone wants to know your thoughts on Fat Lenny, Leonard Fortunato. Is he worthy of a stash? Or we've talked about this a little bit. Nobody's seen Leonard. He's not out there posting workout videos like a lot of these guys do. I have questions about Leonard.
Yeah, I feel like he might weigh 300 pounds right now, honestly. I don't know. He probably doesn't, but yeah. Leonard Fournette's a bit of a pain in the ass, too, man. I mean, he kind of pain in the ass his way out of Jacksonville. He almost got cut from the Bucs before their Super Bowl run, and he realized, you know what, if I get cut from this circumstance, who's going to want me? And he sucked it up, but really, apparently, no one is the answer. Nobody wants you. We've heard a lot more buzz about Kareem Hunt, Bob, than we have about Leonard Fournette. It's possible, if you get the right set of circumstances, you get an injury, that Leonard Fournette could pop back up, but he's not a priority hold for me at this point. In Dynasty either, for that matter. It's tough to let those guys go in Dynasty, but I mean, if I need the roster spot, I had one share of Kareem Hunt, ironically, and I had several. Well, I had one in Dynasty, and I also had Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford on that team. So, I lined myself up perfectly. I have no shares of Leonard Fournette whatsoever. I probably have a best ball share, too. You draft early enough in the offseason, you're hoping, well, maybe he'll sign with somebody at some point, and this value will increase. But I think we'll reach a point maybe next offseason. We'll go, hey, you remember that guy Leonard Fournette? Whatever happened to him? That would not surprise me at all.
I feel like the only opportunity for Leonard Fournette would be like the Patriots if Ezekiel Elliott continues to play. Royal Slade, easy there. I see you in the chat already raising eyebrows at me. But he seems like that kind of reclamation project that would only work if Ezekiel Elliott's not doing something. Oh, wait, he's not.
He's not. And that's the thing, though. Like, what would his role be there, right? It's not going to, unless Ramondre and Zeke were both gone, because they chose Zeke. They could have gone after Leonard Fournette, and they chose Zeke now, and Zeke's not getting a whole lot of work. And, it's only 2 weeks in. These things can definitely change. But, yeah, if you got to make the move, if you got to pick up Craig Reynolds this week and throw him in your lineup, feel free to drop Leonard Fournette. It's okay.
It's okay. So we have Mike Artsy here in a super flex. He has Justin Herbert. His choice for QB2 is Anthony Richardson or Brock Purdy. Any chance Richardson clears for Sunday, or is it Purdy tomorrow? Yes, there's a chance Richardson clears for Sunday. Yes, it's Purdy tomorrow. I think that's pretty straightforward, Mike, huh?
I have this in the Football Diehards Military Appreciation League. These are my two quarterbacks. I had Rodgers and Richardson, so I played week 1 with nothing at quarterback because I wanted to give Rodgers a start there. And then week 2, Richardson thankfully had a nice game ahead of time, but I'm going with Purdy, Bob, even though I've got McCaffrey in the lineup. I don't love that, but what I'm hoping is that he throws at least one of those two. He's an automatic 2 touchdown passes. At least he has been in every game he started and finished to this point in his San Francisco career. So, yeah, I feel like, if that's your option, unless you want to drop Purdy, if there's something else out there on the waiver wire that's comparable and you want to wait, because I understand wanting to wait for Anthony Richardson, but didn't practice today, Bob. So, I mean, even if he's limited tomorrow, are you going to feel confident that he's going to be, completely cleared from the concussion protocol and playing with that reckless abandon that you want Anthony Richardson to play with? So I have the exact same circumstance. I've got Purdy in my lineup. That's what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah, I feel like Gardner Minshew is more than serviceable for them. I think they're perfectly fine playing Minshew. He looked good in this last game, and they got the win. So I'm guessing it'll probably they'll be more cautious. Mike Arts also wants to know, is Javonte trending up as his touches are increasing? Last week was rough. It was kind of rough, but I do think he's holding up reasonably well. I think, and it seemed like P. Ryan faded a little bit. That probably is going to be a week-to-week thing, right?
Yeah, and then you got Jaleel McLaughlin in there as well, scoring a touchdown. That's, I believe, the only touch he had in the game. I don't. Is he trending up? I wouldn't say up just yet. I think he's a guy that, right now, if you like Javonte and you think he's in a good situation, you could probably go out there and trade for him and not have to pay an exorbitant amount. Might get him at a discount from where he was drafted. But if you're the one who drafted him, I would say he's definitely a hold, right? I mean, you could play him as a flex right now because he is a starting running back in the NFL. But I don't like. You and I avoided Javonte Williams and Breece Hall almost exclusively this offseason because of the situations coming back. Like, hey, there are the Adrian Peterson type rapid recovery situations, but they're the exception, and let somebody else hope that they have that lottery ticket. So I really don't have many shares of either one of those guys. Right now, just Breece Hall has shown me more in those 10 carries he had in week 1, and then he got no work, but I'd rather have Hall than I would Javonte at this stage, and I just think he's a guy at the moment. He's a guy that is fine to play. Like, I'd play him over Alexander Madison. How about that? But that's not saying a whole lot. But that's startable, right?
Kyron or Javonte?
Kyron Williams all day. Bob. What does Bob Harris say? Divorce the name from the numbers. That's why I just quoted you. Yes, divorce the name from the numbers and play Kyron Williams over Javonte all day long.
Andrea has on Ross St. Brown. She says, "Oh no, I don't blame her." John Bonneville wishes Sean Payton would play Marvin Mims more. I think he might, right? I mean, I think he's trying to figure out the plan for him, right? They don't have a lot of wide receivers on this team, and Brandon Johnson playing as a third. I think Mims will start mixing in more, but they got him returning kicks too. Do you feel like that might be a little bit of a limiting factor?
Absolutely. Generally, the guys, if you are expected to take on an exceedingly big role, they often don't have you play special teams at all, and which is a little weird because he's clearly the number 3 at worst there in Denver, but he's been productive. Like you said, Brandon Johnson's been productive. Now, one of those touchdowns was a Hail Mary, but he did catch 2 touchdowns, right? And it was like Cortland Sutton was awfully slow getting off the line, and Jerry Jeudy really didn't do much here in his return. Now, it's his first game back from injury, so maybe we give him a pass for a week, but yeah, I think that's a fluid situation there. Keeping in mind that Sean Payton's not beholden to draft capital for any of these guys. He just showed up, so he's going to play the guys that make him look good, and he needs to win some football games, right? I'm not saying Sean Payton's going to be on the hot seat, but he still needs to win some football games. Like I've got a deep dynasty where I threw a couple of bids in on Brandon Johnson, but, if I got him, he would be an end-of-the-bench kind of stash. Marvin Mims looks like a guy that, you ideally don't want to play, but you're playing big enough leagues, Bob. Everyone plays in different sizes. You're in a 10-team league that starts 2 receivers. You're never going to play him. But if you're in a 12 or 14-team league that plays 3 in a flex or multiple flexes, and you and I are in a lot of those kind of leagues. I'm in 16-team leagues with like 3 receivers, 3 flex, where maybe you can max out at 5. But I know you and I are in a dynasty together where everybody can play 6 if they want to. So, those guys should be starting. Mims should be starting at least every week. He's an intriguing prospect. He's already shown something.
I'm in a Mike Clay has a league where you have to start 6 receivers, and you can only have 7 on your roster. So good luck with that every week. And the waiver wire is pretty slim. So never mentioning Allen until his bye week. Yeah, he's got it. All right. So more questions, Mike. Harlem Mundo, hello, good to see you back. Have a good problem this week. Wait, I missed one. Melissa Harris. Are you dropping OBJ for Damian Harris or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I don't see the value in CEH, but if I'm, in a bad running back situation, could Damian Harris, you're praying you get a goal line touchdown, right? I mean, he got one this week and he got you around 10 points.
Latavius Murray doesn't get it that
right.
way.
I mean, but like I was not drafting OBJ at all. OBJ has got to have the greatest agent, or just he must have an incredible presence in the room with you to get the kind of money that the Ravens gave him with his injury history and with their history of not utilizing outside receivers to that degree. Now, Zay Flowers, he's the clear one there. I don't know. I could drop OBJ. Like I would have to see how desperate you are at running back. And I'd maybe make that move for Damian Harris. Like, Bob, if you have Akers and you've got Barkley, and I got a team with both of those guys, and, they're going to be some funny running backs getting starts this week. And it depends. If you're 0-2 and you can't afford to fall down another one, I think it's something you could consider, but I really would rather do it for Harris than for CEH. Now, watch CEH go out and score 2 touchdowns this week.
Every time. Harlan Mundo has a good problem this week. Wide receiver, tight end. He has Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Puka Nacua, Waller. He needs 3 of the 4. Who are you sitting out of Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans? Well, you're not sitting Justin Jefferson. So who are you sitting out of Mike Evans, Puka Nacua, and Darren Waller?
You're not sitting Puka Nacua. All right. I mean, you're just not. I'm probably sitting Waller. Anyway, I mean, how could you sit Puka Nacua?
San Francisco's number 1. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Right. I mean, yes, exactly. Evans coming off that monster game, and Evans is playing mad right now. He wants a contract, and he's trying to show him up, and Baker Mayfield's a gunslinger.
Right. I think Baker's working in his favor. I mean, Godwin's been fine, right? Like, it's not like he's disappeared, but Evans is the star of that show.
Well, I mean, you could look at it and say, well, Waller's got to get the 50 targets because Saquon's not there and they're going to have to rely on him. But I look at it like, man, I want somebody to take some attention away from my guy. Not everyone's Justin Jefferson where they know the ball's coming to you and you get it that often and there's nothing they can do to stop it anyways. I think Waller, And I've got a lot of Waller, and I'm playing him everywhere I've got him. But if I had the option to play Mike Evans over him, I would.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. Do we think Roshan Johnson, says Rob Lenahan, do we think he will continue to get more action and possibly be running back one for the Bears? I think possibly
he could be.
Word here.
Yeah, I think he could be. I mean, Khalil Herbert's been, been okay. Yeah. They need to shake it up. They need a spark, right? Clearly, it looks like Deontay Foreman's not going to get that opportunity as he was a scratch last week. And Roshan in week 1 caught 6 passes, and had, I think he put up about 20 in PPR in week 1. It was very promising. So, there are a lot of people saying, hey, look, if Bijan Robinson wasn't at Texas, people would have been going crazy for Roshan Johnson. So I think that's very possible. Like, that's a guy where I've got him. I'm not looking to play him right now, but I think that could happen sooner rather than later. Now, you got to understand, too, Khalil Herbert's the kind of guy that he can go nowhere, and then he can take one little screen pass and go 75 yards with it, and all of a sudden, the Bears remember, oh, yeah, this guy's too explosive. So I think it's going to be more of a two-man committee type situation, but Roshan's a bigger, thicker guy. I think you could see him get goal line work, and especially if they're continuing to try to keep Justin Fields confined to the pocket. Although the threat of Fields running in those RPO plays helps those running backs, the reality is when he pulls it out of their stomach, it only helps Fields, right? So it doesn't help them. So, yeah, I think Roshan is a guy that could be one of those. He'd be a target right now, like if you've got some depth at a position and he's on a roster where they've got some running back depth, I think he's a pretty good trade target right now.
Right. I would totally agree with that. And by the way, there's a kind of semi-related note. Justin Fields to Vikings, please, says John Bonneville. We're all looking for Justin Jefferson's next quarterback, right? We're dying to know who it is. I don't know that I want it to be Fields.
I want it to be Kirk Cousins until he's dead. Okay, I mean, Kirk Cousins is great for Justin Jefferson. I don't care if the Vikings win games. Who cares? I don't care, not me. So I want it to be Kirk Cousins.
And Justin Jefferson is on that side of the. Justin Jefferson's, he's lobbying for that move as well. So we'll see.
Well, look, I don't have a problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, if Fields goes there after the season, I'm like, he's not going anywhere, right? They're not trading in the division Justin Fields to the Minnesota Vikings. It's kind of silly, but I'm perfectly fine with Cousins. So
it's Kyler Murray. No, I don't. Harlem Mundo wants to know, do you think Jahmyr Gibbs will get the touches now that Montgomery is issued? I'm going to pound my fake desk and say, damn well better get the touches. I think he'll get touches, but Craig Reynolds is going to be involved. They're slow rolling Jahmyr Gibbs in, and maybe this is the game where he starts getting the workload. Mike, I know you've got some Craig Reynolds. You picked him up probably for this very reason, right?
I picked him up for like a 1 week stopgap, right? Or maybe 2. Yep. And I don't think Gibbs gets those Montgomery carries. I don't think they look, they want to get him touches. I think his role will continue to grow in the passing game, and he'll get a few more carries along the way. But I think he's not a battering ram sledgehammer type of back. So, use the between the tackles. I'm not saying he can never run between the tackles, but, I expect Craig Reynolds or some combination of those Detroit running backs to get about 15 carries this week among the guys not named Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, look, if I am a Jahmyr Gibbs manager, I'm not upset that David Montgomery looks like he's going to miss several weeks here, right? But I don't think it all of a sudden means he's getting 10 more carries every week.
I think there's a coaching decisions. I think what I need is another huge game from DeAndre Swift to put a little more pressure on to get something out of the guy that replaced him. That might be more useful than injuries or anything else. We'll see how that goes. John W. Brah. I've been listening to y'all both for the last 12 years on Sirius Radio, and to finally see you, it's horrifying, right, John?
It is. I know. It's terrible.
By the way, subscribe to this channel. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscription thing, hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications. We're doing this all the time, twice a week, every damn week. And then on Friday nights, we got the DFS lineup show with Jamie and Eric. They do great work. They'll sit here and they'll answer your questions as well. Can we talk about Tank Dell and Rashid Shaheed and their sustainability and production? I feel like Tank Dell is someone I was dismissive of, and I shouldn't have been. I'm already regretting how dismissive I was of Tank Dell.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have Dell than Shaheed. because you look at how frequently Houston is throwing the ball with CJ Stroud at the helm, and you look at the depth chart and what Rashid Shaheed has a role in New Orleans, but he's not climbing over Olave, and it's a different role than Michael Thomas. And I think Michael Thomas will consistently get more targets. Tank Dell was a volume receiver with the Houston Cougars. And, right now there's enough for Tank Dell and Robert Woods and Nico Collins, but I think Tank Dell is a guy that's going to grow with CJ Stroud, and I could see him being a clear one of the top 2 options by the end of the year. So, I mean, when a guy puts up those kind of prolific numbers and they back it up with the kind of draft capital in the 3rd round that they gave him, I think you got to pay attention here. And the fact that CJ Stroud kind of stumped for him a little bit doesn't hurt. It's a great narrative. Right. It's a great story. So, but Rashid Shaheed, Bob, is a guy that should be rostered in 12-team leagues as well, I believe, as long as you got like 6 on the bench. And he's, as you like to say, a fine dart throw at any particular time. And you may hit a bullseye. Yeah, look, if he catches a touchdown, you're going to be super happy. And he gave you double figures this week. He caught a 45-yard pass, I believe it was, on Monday Night Football. So, I had to play him in a number of spots, and I'm okay with him. I look at him on my roster, and I'm not ready to move on from him right now. So wanted to hang in there. But I'd rather have Tank Dell.
Just seeing John Bonneville makes the pertinent comment. Tank Dell in on 80% of the snaps, 20% target share. Shaheed, way more boom or bust. Totally exactly correct. We saw that coming. What's your opinion? Holding on Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette. We've already kind of worked through that, Doug. I'm sure you heard it. I'm behind on the questions because we talk about them for a long time, so deal with it. Love listening to you guys, just like on Sirius. It is, because we talk a lot on Sirius. I appreciate you listening. Definitely the best show on Sirius for every year I've had it. Only reason why I kept it for so long. I think you should write 1,000 emails to Sirius stating that very fact today. Andrea is a little disappointed on Miles Sanders. When is he going to hit stride? He's a little beat up this week too, Mike. I saw he was on the injury report limited today. So is Bryce Young. I don't know that all the attention's on Bryce Young. What are realistic expectations for Miles Sanders?
Hopefully more work, right? I mean, that's the thing. They're just, the offensive line is not great. They're not giving it. It's not like they're just turning around and handing them the ball 15 to 18 times. You can go, well, maybe, he'll pop one this week. He looked okay, I thought, the other night. And, but I think Chuba Hubbard's got a little juice in his legs as well. I mean, they spent a lot of money on Miles Sanders. I think that's your great hope, is that they want to get a return on that investment. But I put him on the bench in a league this week, preliminarily with my lineups, where I've got Sanders was ostensibly my 2 behind Bijan Robinson coming into the year. And I played Brian Robinson in the flex last week, so I'm playing Robinson again, and I'm putting Zach Moss in the lineup. That's the one sacrificial benching, and it worked out. I benched Moss for Brian Robinson. I wish I had benched Sanders. So for right now, I've got him out of the lineup entirely. I think, it's a 4:00 kickoff too. So if your options are in those early games, you're going to have to watch that one kind of closely. But yeah, I think I'm watching him with fingers crossed at this point in time. Yeah. And I'm hoping that the workload increases.
Yeah, and hoping the offense kind of picks up the pace a little bit. Royal Slade misses the days. We had Diehards Monday to Friday from 5 to 7 Mountain Time.
So do we, Royal Slade. Yes.
John Bonneville, add Dameon Pierce to the list of disappointments. Thought both would be bell cows, to Andrea's point with Sanders and Dameon Pierce. It's that passing workload that we're seeing. I think that's surprising to me. I expected more Dameon Pierce as well. I wasn't chasing him in drafts and overpaying for him, but I did expect a little more. I know a lot of people expected more. I saw him going higher than I was comfortable taking him. What do you think about this offense going forward? Is CJ Stroud maybe just better than we thought, or progressing more quickly?
No, not necessarily. But he's done well. He's completing about 63% of his passes, throwing for a ton of yards. Hasn't thrown an interception, which is impressive. But you'll back me up on this one, I think, Bob. Dameon Pierce is not a guy I really drafted this year. And it's because of a number of factors here. He hasn't, you can always have the hope that he's going to grow in the role as a pass catcher. And maybe he still will. But there's a team that's going to be behind a lot, you would suspect. So while they're going to try to stay in the game early with the running game, although maybe they're not, the way Stroud's throwing it, if they're behind, do they abandon the run in the second half of games? You bring in Devin Singletary, who is not chopped liver there. It's not what I think is going to be a high-scoring team, so not going to be a ton of goal line work for Dameon Pierce. I think he is what he is. He's a guy that you play him. You can play him as a flex. He should get enough work every week to do that, but I think there's a long range of wide receivers that I would, kind of play over him. I'll give you an example. This week, at least for now, I've got him in a dynasty, and I'm playing the likes of like Cortland Sutton over him. I've got Gabe Davis over him. This is one where that league I talked about, he's a really good runner, and he had a big game against the Jags last year, as I recall. So that's the hope. The Texans, by the way, have beaten Jacksonville 5 straight times in Texan road games. I believe one of those was in London, but so they've had a lot of success in Jacksonville. And they're going to look at what they think is a wounded animal. It's a division game, and they're going to come in very confident they can win this game. So maybe this is an okay week to fire up Dameon Pierce. Jags have been pretty good against the run early on, but look, I'm not giving up on him if I drafted him that early. But there are some warning signs.
I think you can take a little bit of solace in the fact that they're down like 4 offensive linemen. At some point they're going to get 1 or 2 of those guys back. Laramie Tunsil,
you could take solace in that. Yeah, or you could go, damn it, they're down 4 offensive linemen.
You're taking solace in that some are coming back.
I hear you. But, I mean, maybe we'll get Tunsil back, but yeah.
We got a handful of questions. We'll try and go through these a little more rapid fire here down the end, Mike, to make sure we get through all of them. Joe Abear.
Sure.
When does Tank Bigsby become a factor? Asking for myself as well.
Well, apparently not yet, right? I mean, he had a really rough first week where he had the ball and it kind of recovered what nobody realized was a fumble, allowed it to be swatted out of his hands. He had another ball goes through his hands that got picked off. So this week, next man up was Dearness Johnson. Now, he only got 1 carry. Bigsby was on the field in the red zone on a couple of occasions, didn't get the touches. Bigsby is a guy that I've even considered, do I let him go? But I think he's the kind of guy that was so buzzy this offseason that he's going to get picked up right away. So it depends on what you've got on your bench and what kind of situation you have. You can't play him right now. Like, it's not an option if you lost Cam Akers this week to play Tank Bigsby, but I don't want to cut him loose just yet.
12-team half-point PPR flex. You're starting Jordan Addison, Cortland Sutton, or Rashad White. For me, probably White if I'm looking to avoid a 0. If I need maybe a little bit of touchdown upside, I'd go with either receiver. I'd probably lean Sutton, but Addison is a fine play as well.
Yeah, I'd probably go with White as well, so that kind of makes the other part of the question moot. But I might go with Addison because he has scored a couple of times. And, if Cortland Sutton doesn't catch a little fire late in that game, we're going, what the hell was going on here? Is he being phased out? Because we like to overreact. But I'm with you. I'd play White ahead of both of those guys.
Can you play Ridley and Kirk with confidence this week, says John Fusette?
I'm always going to put – Ridley's like one of those guys I'm just going to put in there. Ridley had a shaky game. Yep. Lawrence had a shaky game. You kind of saw it coming with Kansas City and Christian Kirk, but Zay Jones didn't practice today. And so, they're kind of like in wait and see mode with him, whereas like we're worried about Josh Allen, the pass rusher, being available. And even though he's limited in practice, Doug Peterson said, he'll be fine. He didn't say that about Zay Jones. So Tim Jones would be the next man up. He's not going to get as many looks as Zay Jones did. Nobody knows who Tim Jones is around the league. So, there are worse ideas of what you could do. I'd have to go back and look what Kirk did specifically against Houston last year. But ideally, I don't want to play 2 receivers from the same team. But, they're going to put up the points they're going to put up. And the week to do it would be the week Zay Jones misses, if he in fact does.
Mike Artois is wondering if it's okay. Should he stick with Miles Sanders or try to move him? You should stick with him because you can't move him for anything of value right now. John Bonneville feels like the Ravens paying OBJ was directly related to them negotiating with Lamar. That makes sense.
Maybe.
Slade got Kyron for $1. That's a win. Best take Bob has had all offseason was not fading Evans Godwin. Thank you. Melissa Harris, Mike in Iggy's league would like you to go make a trade with her. Sniper Mel, she's earning it running back. Help her out.
Send me an offer. Let's go. In fact, I have Miles Sanders in that league. You wanted me to make a trade, and you haven't sent me an offer. You know who you're talking about.
Down to trade. Down
No
to trade is Mike Dempsey's thing.
T-shirt incoming. T-shirt incoming.
Hello, Wendy Early. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. Let's see how these guys up to, and I'm looking to keep it going. What's up, Bob? What's up, Doug? Everyone's saying hello. Everyone's loving the chat. Mike, everyone's having a great time. I have a buddy benching Sanders for Gus Edwards with Hill banged up. That's what 2023 has come to in week 3. It has come to that. Mike Dempsey looks nothing like I imagined. I thought he was a suit guy, says Wendy Early. I've seen him in a suit.
I look good in a suit. I look really good in a suit. But Bob will tell you, I usually got a T-shirt and a long sleeve shirt on underneath it when I'm doing the radio show. And, yeah, I mean, I feel like the hat makes me look much sharper as well. So I went with the hat. It's not like I got any real hair under there that I'm hiding. So
you've drawn a Gary Davenport comparison here, in terms of not looking like what people expect. I've known what Gary looked like for so long. I don't know that I would expect anything but what he is.
Gary's fresh out of a hairband. I don't know what you expected, but I guess maybe I like the fact that I sounded like a suit guy. What does a suit guy sound like? But this is me. It's like either this or it's a golf shirt, Harris. That's it. That's my wardrobe. That's what I got.
Zara wants to know, in our infinite wisdom, needs a wide receiver 3, Drake London, DJ Moore, or Jordan Addison. Mike?
Oh, boy. You're all welcome, by the way. I benched Drake London in the one league where I have him last week. You know, coming off of one target. Hey, sometimes you got to do it. And I won. I was able to win. I had my bottom 2 receivers. He would have covered them both. So I'm probably a little partial to going that direction. I mean, DJ Moore had a good game as well last week. I'm leaning slightly London, but that's one that you might talk me into more by kickoff on Sunday.
I feel like, this is one where all the chatter now and everything surrounding, Chicago, like I might almost go more. I've said this many times in the last week or two. Drake London is right now a wide receiver, a hard decision, a wide receiver 3 every week. I think this is no different. I'd probably lean slightly to more over London just because I think there might be a little more passing bandwidth in Chicago, but not a ton more. So it's close call. DJ for me, then London, then Addison. I think that's, I think London or more probably interchangeable. Yeah.
I kind of like that matchup, though. Atlanta at Detroit, right. That's indoors, maybe shootout city. So, anyway.
People appreciative of you sacrificing for their sins, Mike Dempsey. They are repenting in the chat as we speak. Hit the like button if you're repenting. That's what I want you to do. Or the dislike button. I like the dislike button. A variety of guests, but maybe this should be the lineup every week. It just fits. Great show as always. Mahalo. I hear you. All right, everybody. All right. Well, I think we've hit all the questions. We've answered everybody's queries. John agrees with Robert. Love Harrison Dempsey. Best show around. It's great to be loved, people. We appreciate that. We like that you listen to us on the radio box. Zara's leaning London as well, so the little confirmation for him there. I know what you guys are doing, right? You want to know if you're crazy or not. Like 90% of every question is like, is it crazy to know? It's almost never crazy, but sometimes when it is, we'll tell you that's effing crazy, man. Don't do that.
Yes.
It's happened. But we appreciate you coming every week. You got a lot of choices out there, a lot of content to check out. And I appreciate everyone coming here, asking the questions every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. with a guest. Sometimes Dempsey. Apparently should be every time. I don't know. We'll work on that. Sometimes not Dempsey. Every Saturday it's me and may have a guest or two on there. Every Friday night, 9 p.m. on this very spot at the YouTube channel. Eric Romoff and Jamie Calandro talking through all the week's matchups, ownership percentages, everything you need to know, pricing on DraftKings to help you set up your great winning DFS lineups. Go to the website. Tons of content there as well. I'll be starting the updates overnight, the late breaking news. But go check out the team notes right now. Very comprehensive information available to you. The latest injury report is up too. Lineup optimizers, stats, tools, every damn thing you need. Go there. Promo code DieHards, 15% off. Otherwise, Mike, any final words before I kick you out?
No, thanks for having me on. Appreciate everybody who listens to the show. I hope we keep it fresh after all these years doing it together. I love doing it. You know, you and I think they'll pry my Bob Harris from my cold dead hand. One day is what they will do, which always reminds me of that scene in the original Red Dawn where the guy had that bumper sticker and literally was having his gun pried from his dead hand, which was classic. Well, tell me again, what was the league? Who's the person that wants me to send him a trade offer? Which league? Because I will do it.
It's in the Iggy League. It's Sniper Mel in the Iggy's League.
Okay. Gotcha. Sniper Mel, always looking to make a move.
All right, both of you look way different than I imagined, too. For some reason, I imagine Mike Dempsey looking like the announcer from Tuesday Night Fights and Bob like the greatest American hero. Where does that come from? I don't even have hair. All right, good night, everybody. Love you.